All righty, we are back. Episode 7, Reality Check with Spence Checkits. Reminder, we record this on Tuesday. It's released on Wednesday, and it's televised on Friday night. Also streaming on ESPN 700. You can catch us on KJazz and KMYU on Friday nights. So if you do see this Friday, you may hear some of yesterday's news because it's Tuesday afternoon. Episode 7, Spence Checkits here, and it is a historic week for the landscape of the Utah Jazz. So how about we bring in a man that might be as tied to the Utah Jazz as anybody else these days, Craig Bolerjack. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm good. By the way, I want to compliment whoever did the video or the portrait of one Spence Checkits.
Yeah, a little awkward.
Can I talk to that person?
We can put you in touch.
That's impressive, pal.
Yeah, my friends say I look like a bad character from a romance novel.
Yes.
And now it's my picture on all their phones when I call them, unfortunately. But hey, it's AI. It's the new world.
I like it. I like it. Looks good.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm good.
Good.
Summer is here, and I already feel rested.
Good.
Now I'm excited.
Sure.
So let's move this thing along.
Absolutely. What year will this be for you, calling Utah Jazz basketball?
Boy, this will be year 22.
Wow.
Which is it's gone by so fast.
Yeah.
I remember the first game in 2005. Ostertag had returned, and we had some fun with him that night before tip-off. And here we are in 2026, heading into Spence, really maybe one of the most impactful seasons since the Carl and John days of 97 and 98, when they had back-to-back opportunities to win an NBA title.
So I have a memory. When I was a kid, I used to love watching Jazz games on like the VHS.
Oh yeah.
So I'd throw even when I was a kid, I'd throw a tape in, I'd record all the games. You'll have to tell me what year this was, but one of my favorite games that I used to watch all the time was a Sixers Jazz game.
Okay.
And Charles Barkley was playing for Philly and Carl was playing for the Jazz. And it was you and Jim Nantz.
Yeah.
Pre-game. And you were discussing the physicality of the matchup, and obviously Jim is still a close friend of yours. What would that have been? 1984?
That would have been the fall of 85.
Okay.
Just prior to him, he had come back and forth and was trying to get through the end of the year with KSL and was with CBS at that time on Saturdays, was a host of college football on CBS.
Yeah.
And so the Jazz and Channel 5 had like a 10-game package that allowed us to broadcast. And when I first got hired, I remember our news director at that time, Spence Kennard, which is a name that people remember around town, said, "Hey, by the way, part of your deal is you're going to be an analyst." Really?
Yes.
Yeah. So I did some with Hot Rod, and then Nance and I did a couple of games as well together. So it was fun times. I'd say it was a different time.
Sure.
1985, the Jazz were just really building into something after the Larry Miller transaction, I should say, and the transition into the Miller family. It was great times, fun times, and now the Jazz have come so far.
How long have you been in the business overall? 22 years straight calling Jazz games on television. How long have you been in the business?
The business now, this will date me. I started at 12, but this is miraculously, I started in 1981. So you do the math, and I'm at 45.
Okay.
45, and I cover the Jazz since 85, left for 13 years for CBS, but I still was able to do local radio and stay in touch with the Jazz and what they've been through. It's been a joy. It really has.
Yeah, it's funny because I just hit year 20, right? So
amazing, man.
I've got a little skin in the game, and I just want to take advantage of the space for a moment. We're going to talk draft because it's a big deal. That's why Craig is here. But I think all of us kind of in this little ecosystem owe you a thank you.
Oh, too kind.
Well, I mean, I directly took over for you on the big show when you had decided that the TV stuff was a little too busy, time to leave the radio. So I stepped into a pretty ready-made show, and it was a nice way for me to ease my way into the business because there was already a listenership, and a lot of that was you. Some of it was Monson, but most of it was you.
We had a good time. Monson was the bad guy. I tried to direct him as you did, and we had some crazy fun shows. Yeah. And I look back at those all the time with a smile on my face. And you did a marvelous job making it happen.
No, I appreciate that. And you're still good enough to come on my show from time to time, which I always appreciate because Craig Bolerjack is a legendary name in the Salt Lake City media ecosystem. But look, I was on my couch Sunday afternoon after sending mom flowers. Happy Mother's Day, belated Mother's Day to all you great women out there that we owe everything to. And I had a visceral reaction. We would all have loved the number 1 overall pick, but I'll tell you what, 11% chance to grab 2, and the Jazz grabbed 2. Where were you, and what was your reaction when you saw the news?
I'm going to go back to a year ago when the Jazz, or 2 years now, 17 wins. And I was in my office like this going, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
This is going to be big. This is going to be at least a 1 or a 2. Boom, 5. And I just sat there like, wow, all that. 17 wins gives the Jazz the 5 spot. And then Dallas with a 1.8% chance picks up 1 and Cooper. So this year I went to the same spot. And you and I had talked earlier, I believe, in the week, and you ran down the percentages, and I said, okay, I have come to the conclusion after doing my studies that this is going to be another number 5.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got to 5 and the card passed, I go, man,
here we go.
This may be really special. We get to 4, we get to 3, and then boom. I said, you know what, Jazz Nation, Danny, Austin, Ryan, Ashley, everyone is going to be out of their minds with a 1 or a 2, and it comes out as the number 2 pick. That ties the highest rate draft number ever in Jazz franchise history. And as you mentioned multiple times, it's the first time that the lottery has treated the Jazz up above what was expected. So a special draft, and you hope it goes right, because this is a franchise changer.
Absolutely.
For the next 10 years or beyond, because it sets a tempo for what Ryan and Ashley are trying to do. They've given the Delta Center their second facelift right now as we speak, and there'll be a third phase. I love Delta Center. Man, there were so many memories in that building, and I think Jazz Nation feels the same way. I'm glad they've dumped money into the facelift, so to speak. And I'm just excited to see the good things that happen ahead.
Excuse me. I'll tell you what, I'm as nostalgic as anybody. But I've got to say, they've done an excellent job with that building. And the hockey experience is really cool.
Great.
Excited to see what the new experience looks like when they're done. And look, things change. People progress. Leagues change. And sometimes you need a little bit of fresh blood to keep up with the Joneses. And I think Ryan and Ashley have shown that they're the right owners at the right time.
Yeah, they bring what I remember in '85 when Larry basically put every nickel and dime he had in his pocket.
And took a big loan from our guy Spence Eccles.
No doubt, to make it all work. I remember being at that press conference, and Larry, and I'm sure Gail was basically, Spence, let's just say, are we doing the right thing? But he was all in, and Gail was too, because it was a community. I guess he dedicated himself to making this community better. And he saw down the road, like some of us could not, of what the impact this franchise and the building, Delta Center would have. And here we are years and years later, still impacting Salt Lake City and beyond.
And Larry and Ryan have that in common, right? Whenever and we're hoping to have Ryan on next week, we'll see. But oftentimes whenever Ryan's interviewed, he says what he wants to do for the state of Utah. This is for Utah. Utah shows up, and they're building a brand new practice facility out south. He bought a mall, knocked it down, and there's going to be a nice office space for his people. There's going to be a great spot for the hockey team, and the basketball facility looks like it's awesome. He's doing what you need to do to change the narrative of will players stay here. The NHL guys, like Connor McDavid was vacationing in Utah last week. So I think the NHL guys are a little bit more inclined to look at a place like this. But if the Jazz are going to win a championship, they've checked 2 boxes so far. It's draft, develop. The last one is retain. That's the last box. So whether it's Hayward, whether it's Mitchell, trading Donovan, trading Rudy. And I found it interesting. You alluded to this. Austin Ainge, after the lottery, I found this to be calculated. He said, we want this young player to be with us for a decade. Not for his rookie deal, not for his second. We want him to be part of our ecosystem and our team for a decade, which leads us to the possibilities, Craig, of what 2 could look like. So the AJ Dybantsa conversation, I think, is really interesting because it's undeniable that Ryan and some other BYU boosters played a hand in getting AJ to Wasatch Academy, then getting AJ to BYU. And the AJ Dybantsa experience at BYU was everything was cracked up to be on an individual basis. The team had some injuries, so they didn't win as much as I thought that they would. I don't know what your understanding is of exactly what the relationship is with Ryan and AJ, but the fact that the Dybantsas live here and he has a relationship with Ryan, there's part of me that says, do anything you need to do to go get that kid on June 23rd.
You know, to your question, I don't know the true relationship there unless it's just total talent that he and Danny and the Angels saw, and that could they replicate that with the Jazz after his 1 year in Provo. But it is intriguing to see if indeed this happens. I think the one caution that I keep hearing around different, reporters and insiders who say, look, don't overplay your hand at number 2 and give away what you've already developed to get AJ. And Washington is smart enough to know they've got 2 guards. They picked a number 6 last year in Trey Johnson. And, he had an okay rookie year, 12 points, I think 6 rebounds. But do they want to go all in on another guard who many believe have Kobe-like skills? But then again, like last year, Ace Bailey was kind of like that one. I'm not sure he's our guy around the league, but yet he turned out to be a gem for the Jazz after he changed agents, and he's coachable. He developed, was sick early, had the hamstring. I remember him telling me, he goes, I've never had an injury, and this has a mind of its own. And he took his time. And I tell you, after the All-Star break, we saw him blossom because of minutes. The rest of the team's on the bench, and they're cheering for him, but he was able to get, the reps, which is what is everything. But getting back to AJ, I think the Jazz have developed so many players young, and the minutes played has helped Sensabaugh. It helped Collier, Filipowski. The list goes on and on. So do you disrupt that plan just to get AJ in the house, and do you give away assets that you've worked hard to develop? That's going to be probably the biggest key for Austin and Danny and Justin Zanuck to say, okay, what do we do, and how do we play our cards? I got a feeling Ainge was one guy that no one wants to play a hand of poker with, and he's not going to show his cards, in my opinion. Very few GMs do, and I think Ainge is probably one of the toughest that's ever been dealing cards.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look at Danny's history, one of maybe the best, and he made a lot of good moves in Boston. They won a championship. They went to a bunch of Eastern Conference finals. They're still a good team. And for the most part, it's because of some of the things that Danny did. His best move may have been, Markelle Fultz at the time was at Washington. He was at UW. So he's a Pac-12 kid. So we all watched him play. It's like, yeah, he's good. But Danny liked Jason Tatum. And most of the league liked Markelle Fultz. So Boston wins the lottery. And Danny very smartly trades the number 1 pick to Philly, gets number 3 and a couple of additional assets. He's like, go ahead and take Fultz. I like my guy.
Yeah.
He drafts Tatum. It turns out that was absolutely the right move. So is there something like that in play here? The issue is, if you really want AJ and you have to go get one, Washington is in the spot of power. They actually are holding the ace in the hole. So then the conversation becomes like, what are you willing to do to move up to 1? One idea that was floated out there was 2, Ace Bailey for 1, and Bilal Coulibaly. Now, to your point, it's hard to move Ace after what we saw a year ago. And part of me believes, like, unless you think the gap between AJ and Darren Peterson is big, just grab Peterson at 2 and put him next to Ace and say, we've got 2 19, 20-year-old star wings that we're going to grow with. So I don't know. There's a lot to consider. A lot of people do believe that Darren might be the better prospect long-term. And I always say this: college tape for an NBA scout is additive. It's not conclusion. Right? Because we've been watching this freshman class since they were like 12, 13, 14 years old. Social media has changed the world. The internet's changed the world. So you hear this stuff about Cameron Boozer at the age of 13, like, holy smokes. And then we're watching them play against each other for 5, 6, 7 years. And up until this year, everybody thought Darren was the guy. And then what AJ did this year, combined with some of the issues Darren had, I think catapulted him up there. But what do you think about the possibility of Cameron Boozer, whose father, Carlos Boozer, played here and currently works for the team, which is another interesting wrinkle?
Statistically, everyone believes he may be the most solid of all. And what he played with in the Duke organization, which everyone knows, with Filipowski and Carlos himself. Everyone who comes out of Duke always has been so well coached and so well prepared, because they're always in the centerpiece and the spotlight, Spence, of college basketball. And what it does is it prepares you to say, okay, I'm going to make the next transition, which I have to say this. I'm glad that Keontae dove into himself last summer. And I think that's the biggest issue in NBA young players today. Mental health. Are you prepared to be in a man's world? And as they draft younger, 18, I mean, Cooper, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing by itself. But I think the Jazz have done a good job to recognize the biggest part of this transition from high school, AAU, high school, college, now into the NBA. And I hope that they continue to do that because it's not easy. You can get sandwiched into an area with the wrong people that direct you in this way or that way. And you have to be really focused. And the Jazz, I hope, are obviously there to help. But I think that's the thing about Darren. The interview process at the combines, I think, are going to be uber important this year. Sit down and you got to get to know your investment. And if that happens and you find yourself okay with what you see, then you got to pull the trigger, right? But if not, and you see some glaring inconsistencies or concerns, then that could sway or should sway what direction you want to go. You bring up a great point. There's 4 really high-level players. Caleb Wilson from North Carolina. My gosh, haven't talked about him, but he can do it all. Big frame, agile, score, defender. And that's the other part too, Spence. I wonder how much that's going to play in the Ainge's decision with Will Hardy, who has preached, as you know, for 3 years, if you want to make this roster, you have to play D. And who are the last champions in the NBA? Boston, defense. Oklahoma City, defense. And man, it's the best team I saw this year. Again, they're totally dedicated to the other side of the floor.
Let me lay a scenario on you. You tell me how you think this plays out. Let's say June 23rd rolls around. Okay. And whatever is transpiring, the Jazz at 2, Austin likes Darren Peterson. Danny likes Cameron Boozer.
Oh boy.
Who do you think makes the call?
Oh boy.
See, that to me is an unbelievably fascinating dynamic here. Because both those two are killers in their own right.
They are.
I could see Austin saying, "This is my show, Dad.
Yep.
Okay, it's my time. We're taking Peterson." And I could see Danny being stubborn and saying Cameron Boozer's the better option.
Yeah, to have Ryan step in the room and
Might
say, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
You know, because there's a lot of decisions there too with contracts, money. How far does Ryan and Ashley want to push the envelope in the sense of their cap? And those things will come into play, you know, as the summer continues on with extensions and free agency. But Spence, man, we say this every summer, man, it's going to be fun. No, this is epic in my opinion. It's generational. It's been since Stockton and Malone. Look, it happened with Griff just to save the franchise and then build it around Eaton, Thurl Bailey, my partner.
Big T.
Then comes Stockton, then comes Malone. And all of a sudden things look really good. And it takes time, but they push it to the next level, not once, but twice. And now you go back to where, you know, the Jazz once were, greatness. And is this the next step of the greatness of this franchise? And what happens? This isn't a 3-year window. This isn't a 5-year window. Ryan made it very clear that he wanted this to be a Golden State window of 8 to 10. And I think they're on track to do exactly that.
Well, I think one of the biggest deals about what happened on Sunday is that the one thing the Jazz don't have on their roster right now, it's the hardest thing to find, and that is a potential top 10 or 15 guy. Now, if you look at the history of pro basketball, everybody always says, well, Detroit in 2004. All right, congrats. You found a team in 65 years that didn't have a top 10 player.
Right.
And, you know, we won't get into the whole like Ben Wallace could really guard Shaq conversation. Nobody cares. But outside of the Pistons in 2004, you can go look for yourselves. Every team that wins the championship has Shea or Steph or LeBron or Durant or Jokic. And every year before the season, ESPN does it, The Athletic does it, The Ringer does it. They do their like top 100 NBA players. And my guess is Lowry and Jaren Jackson Jr. are probably between 20 and 25, which is fine. They're both really, really good. But in order to put yourself next to Oklahoma City and San Antonio, these two juggernauts, these two young juggernauts out west, you got to find one of those top 10 guys. And most people believe that whoever you get at 2 when it's fully baked, he might be a franchise-changing piece, like a cornerstone, legitimate generational talent. And the Jazz just don't have that, respectfully, on the roster right now.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. What changed Oklahoma City? Clippers would like to pull back that trade, right, with SGA.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, Spence, chemistry, coaching, who fits and who can run the show, who can complement the likes of Triple J and Marketing, can Key and the pace and Collier, who's off ball, on ball with Keontae. Man, I tell you one thing that Will was so excited about when I talked to him in the last week of the season was that what he has now on paper is that he has multiple options. He can go big, he can go small, he can go fast, he can push tempo, he can pull back half court. He wants to play some zone if he wants. And so that to me is uber exciting because a lot of coaches don't have that.
Right.
And you add another piece, whether it's Boozer, whether it's AJ, whether it's Peterson, whether it's Caleb, all four of those players give you another option in the world of the NBA that will make it hell, honestly, on a given night in the NBA to defend and decide who you are going to try to shut down and leave open.
Yeah.
And Will Hardy, who begins his 5th season, finally gets a chance to coach.
That's who I mean, look, when the Keontae sitting there and the envelope is revealed that it's Utah too, I was thrilled for Ryan and Ashley. I was thrilled for the Angels and Zanuck and Jazz Nation and all the Jazz fans, and thrilled for us that cover the team that it'll be a lot more fun. But I may have been happier for Will than anybody else because, and we'll end on this. We got a couple of minutes left. For people that don't know pro coaches, these guys are maniacs. They're lunatics. They're competitive. They want to win. And I don't think Will has ever been super forthcoming about how difficult this has been for him for 4 years.
Agreed.
As simplistic as it sounds, now he will be allowed to play his best players as much as he wants. And I think a lot of people think he's going to be unshackled because he does have this brilliant basketball mind.
Well, look, he's off the coaching tree of Popovich. He had the 1 year in Boston. And, I think that he is ready to show doubters that he can coach. I think what I've observed in my time with him is that he's incredibly connected to these younger players. Sloan was the tough guy, lunch pail, what have you. That era has come and gone, but it worked during his time with the Jazz. You have to massage and understand and talk and work with these players because of their young age every night and try to get the most out of them. He and Keontae, there were rough waters, but I give them both credit to be able to continue to work it out. And Key came back as a totally different player, engaged, leadership, alpha, beginning to show an alpha side that Will Hardy desperately needs on this team. And Triple J may be the other piece of that to bring Laurie Marketing along and even Walker, if they so choose to match whatever offer Kessler may get.
Yeah.
But, man, you want options? They're everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me a quick thought because I do think Walker's coming back. The last thing I'll get from you before I set you loose is I don't think they're going to trade Ace. I think they're going to hold on to him. I had somebody at the arena say I wouldn't trade him for the first pick right now. I don't know if that's true. I felt like it was posturing, but that's a commentary on how much they like him. If there's a player on the roster right now that has the potential of being a top 10 guy, it might be Ace. So tell me what you've seen in his growth.
I love his growth. He is all basketball. He's still a kid.
Yeah.
And you know what, Spence? That's what you have to wonder when you go into it, is that we're developing him, and he made huge strides, especially in the second half of the season. If the Jazz want to make, I'll leave you with this. If the Jazz want to make a splash, you remember what Ainge did when they decided to break up and move Rudy and move Donovan. There is still a plethora of picks in a pocket somewhere. Do you use those instead of players to entice, whether it's the Wizards or not? But do you finally use some of those picks to say, you know what? We're going to move up and make a splash.
Yeah.
Instead of moving players we developed, we may use picks.
Yeah. Intriguing offseason ahead, Bowler. Great stuff as always. Good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me in.
Okay, episode 7, Reality Check with Spence Checkets. We'll wrap it up. Coming up next, right here on KMYU, KJazz TV, and ESPN 700.
Sorry, dude.
All right, there you go. Episode 7 of Reality Check with Spence Check. It's in the books. Special thank you to the TV voice of the Utah Jazz, Craig Bolerjack. A historic week for the Jazz as they land the number 2 pick in the NBA lottery. We're going to find out who the newest member of the Utah Jazz is on June 23rd. Just a reminder, we record this on Tuesdays. We release it on Wednesdays. It's televised on Fridays. On Friday night at 9:30, you can see it on KMYU or KJazz, also on YouTube as well. Special thanks to Bowler. Talk to you next time. Episode 8 next week of Reality Check with Spence Check. It's right here on KUTV, KMYU, and ESPN 700. are